My name is History Williams again, and this is the Ology Show. And we're going to be starting off a little earlier to kind of give you your sports talk. So, lots of stuff going on this week in sports. I know it's not the same time as the Floyd Mayweather and the Kentucky Derbies and stuff like that, but we got kind of some big things going on. In a few minutes, I will have Seth Lewis, a sports anchor at a news station down in Louisiana, calling in and talking about what's going on with the latest sports talk. Going to give his predictions on who will be taking off in the college football playoffs, as well as predictions on NBA and also the playoffs for the NFL. Got a lot of stuff going on. But let's start off actually with the stuff that kind of made Ology start off. Let's talk about wrestling. WWE has its 25 years of The Undertaker coming up with the Survivor Series, which is going to be this weekend. It's going to be a big thing. One of the big things that's headlined is actually the semifinals for the vacated WWE World Heavyweight title. Alberto Del Rio will be going against, of course, Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns originally was the perspective to go against Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins was originally the WWE World Heavyweight Champion, and Roman Reigns got his number one contendership goal for the title. And, of course, recently, Seth Rollins just got injured. Roman Reigns is supposed to go against Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins actually injured his ACL. And also, this came at the same time where Alberto Del Rio beat John Cena at Hell in a Cell for the U.S. title and John Cena's U.S. title open. Also, it's a way to give John Cena a break from wrestling for a little bit of time. So, who else better to give the title to? Well, it led to this tournament. The tournament kind of narrowed down to the semifinals, which we will see the semifinals this weekend at Survivor Series. First match will be Roman Reigns versus Alberto Del Rio. Second match will be Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns' friend and buddy, brother, shield brethren, Dean Ambrose. Kevin Owens, who won the Intercontinental Championship from Ryback. This is the makings of a good rivalry between, I would say, Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose, because what if Dean Ambrose beat Kevin Owens? Because Dean Ambrose for the last 2 or 3 weeks been calling out Mr. Kevin Owens, and now you look at what's going on now with that. Well, I honestly predicting that Roman Reigns will be the WWE World Heavyweight Champion at the end of the night. But I feel like Sheamus is still the wild card. He's going to cash in that Money in the Bank. Now let's go for the battle for the torch. That's what I call it. For the Brothers of Destructions, Kane and Undertaker is going against 2 members of the Wyatt family, Bray Wyatt, the leader, as well as Braun Strowman, the black sheep. What this is special because of the fact that we're trying to pass on the torch to Undertaker. Undertaker has been around for years, decades. Nobody really can say that about too much of their career in WWE, is that they've been around for decades. Of course, we cannot just fathom the accolades that came with the Undertaker and how much he basically kept his gimmick as the dead man, as stayed strong as a dead man. So who else better to pass it on to the sinister, the eater of worlds, Mr. Bray Wyatt? So I think this would be a perfect match for Kane and Undertaker to give it the last ride, give it the best Brothers of Destruction's tag team match, and then officially lose against Bray Wyatt, because Undertaker originally beat Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania this past year, and I feel like Bray Wyatt was kind of left in the wind when it comes to that. And, of course, a lot of anger is coming from that. So Bray Wyatt, I am predicting Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman to beat the Brothers of Destruction. Charlotte versus Paige for the Divas title. That is, I think that Charlotte is good for business, and especially with WWE in talks with getting Ronda Rousey. I think that, honestly, it leads for the perfect rivalry between Ronda Rousey and Charlotte. So Charlotte is going to walk away with the Divas title. But this is something that's branched off of jealousy between Paige and for Charlotte, and all over this Divas Revolution, which has recently been actually successful. So I think that Charlotte is basically revolutionizing Divas wrestling right now, and I think Paige is doing the same. If you ask me, I think the Divas Revolution actually started with AJ Lee, not them two, but it led to what it is now, and I think that the doors are open for that. And last but finally not least, Dolph Ziggler versus Tyler Breeze. That's a rivalry that started off Tyler Breeze making his debut. And now you look at this, it's actually finally happened. And also the traditional Survivor Series 5-on-5 match. We got a caller coming in, and I will be right back.
Happy to be on the show.
Thank you. So let's talk about college football. And one more time because apparently my system cut out. So tell me about yourself one more time. Apparently it cut off for a second.
Okay, well, I'm a sports reporter slash anchor at WBRZ TV in Baton Rouge.
Hmm.
I cover LSU, the Saints, Southern University, and all of the high school sports and other things are around this area in
Okay.
Baton Rouge.
All right. I appreciate that, and of course, go Tigers, right? You're a Tigers graduate, right? Alumni
Yes,
member.
yeah, I'm a graduate of LSU, and a lover of Louisiana sports. So honestly, I'm living a dream every day. Being able to cover these teams that I watched growing up. So
Okay. All right. So let's go college football since we're talking about college right now. All right. According to the AP Top 25, I'm gonna just name off the 10. We got Clemson, who is 10, Ohio State 10, and that's 1 and 2. Clemson 1, Ohio State 2, Alabama 3, Oklahoma State 4, and let's stop at Notre Dame 5. So who are you thinking that should be at the college football playoff rankings?
right now, of course, that's the AP.
Mm.
In the college football playoff rankings, it's
Clemson
flipped a
is,
little bit.
yeah,
Notre Dame is 4.
yeah,
Oklahoma State is 5. Honestly, there's still so much that has to play out when it comes to the schedule. I mean, that's kind of the excitement about the college football playoff. Like a couple years ago when this wasn't in place, you were looking at two teams. Usually, you were looking at teams looking to stay undefeated and whatnot. But you have a one-loss Alabama, you have a one-loss Notre Dame that's in play. I mean, shoot, they're even talking about two-loss teams a little bit further down the line in the rankings, like Stanford, two-loss Stanford,
yeah,
two-loss Michigan, having a chance. Even one-loss Michigan State. If they can, if a lot of these teams, they just have to run the table down the stretch. And so it's really exciting for me. I think that the Final Four will end up being Clemson, Alabama, oh, I'm gonna say Ohio State. I think Ohio State closes out, but they got a really tough schedule down the stretch. They
yeah.
have
They
to
got
play
Michigan this
Mich-
weekend, and then they
They
got
got to
U
play
of M
Michigan
right at
State
that.
this weekend. I think that game against the Wolverines is going to be extremely tough. I mean, Jim Harbaugh really has Michigan playing really well, and the loss to Michigan State was something that you really don't see very often. So that probably should be a one-loss team. So that's a very dangerous game. And if they survive that, they got to go against an Iowa team that in
Iowa's
that
10 and oh,
in
yeah,
the college.
undefeated too.
Yeah, they're undefeated, and now I'm thinking about it, I think they're 5 in the college football playoff ranking, and
Yeah,
Oklahoma State is 6. So, you know, I'm gonna say Ohio State, but any of those teams can make it. And then at 4, I think it's gonna be out of Oklahoma State and Oklahoma, kind of whoever runs the table. But I would not be surprised if Notre Dame stays at 4. But they have a tough game too against Stanford at their very last game of the year. So
honestly, my calls. Of course, if you want me to give you my fantasy version, I will put LSU at number one. Still, even though they have
yeah,
these two losses.
that's that's you can give that up history.
Yeah,
That
exactly,
is that is
exactly.
history.
Yeah, exactly. But
The way they've lost the last 2 games,
yeah, it
you
was
know,
really terrible.
it's yeah, it would be very tough, and it's crazy to think that they were just number 2 a couple weeks ago,
Yeah,
and now you're talking about them at 15. So yeah, that is history. History.
exactly. Well, I still have Clemson at number one. I feel like they deserve the most. Not biased. I want to be, but I'm not biased against Alabama. I think they still deserve to be number two. I wouldn't be surprised if they're trumped by Oklahoma State, though. I feel like Oklahoma State really has worked hard and they came out of nowhere. So I do have Oklahoma State as well as U of M and Ohio State.
So
I'm a
That's
little
4 teams
backwards.
or 5 teams.
That's 4 teams. Clemson. Oh, I'm sorry. That's 5 teams.
Hmm.
I'm backwards.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
putting
that's fine.
Ohio State. I'm putting Ohio State and Oklahoma State kind of in the same bracket. So I have Clemson,
Uh-huh.
Alabama. I'm just indecisive about um Oklahoma State and Ohio State. I think they're kind of like even. I think it's gonna come out of nowhere, but I know for sure that I believe
Yeah,
U
and
of M is gonna
honestly,
come out of there too.
the
If
the thing
especially
that's tough about like Oklahoma State and Oklahoma and all that is that the Big 12 doesn't have a championship game.
yeah,
So the committee a lot of times, or not a lot of times, but the committee views the champion of a conference with weight. Like if you're the champion of a conference and you have the resume to back it up,
yeah,
usually that's like one of the trump cards when it comes to deciding who the final four teams are. So because they don't have a championship game, if Oklahoma State and Oklahoma happens to lose a game down the stretch, then that could take the Big 12 out of it completely. So, but I would agree with you. If there's a team out of the Big 12 that I think right now would make it into the playoffs, I would predict Oklahoma State, but who knows, man?
yeah.
And that's
It's
the fun of it all, though.
exactly.
No one knows, and over the next 3 weeks, things are really gonna play out and get exciting, and things are gonna change. It's gonna be a fluid situation until they pick the final four teams.
Yeah, I honestly, I've really been kind of just delving into like the fantasy league stuff, and
Hmm.
honestly paying attention more into like football this year and basketball this year, and honestly, from doing all of this stuff with like the brackets, of course I did the brackets last year with the March Madness brackets. I honestly think football is funner when it comes to being actually proactive with it. If you look at NBA and college basketball, I really feel like the excitement when it comes to sports now is seems like it's kind of like multiplying in football for some reason. Even with the fandom for normal people now, basketball is kind of like I don't saying that is losing its popularity, but I feel like for some reason it is becoming so much more like more fun and more proactive and
I, I think part of that is that it's become more accessible to the fan.
yeah,
With, for example, like you said, with fantasy football. Before, if you were talking about this climate or this 2015 season, let's say, 15 years ago when fantasy football wasn't as much around, it was like in its early stages. Uh, you're talking about, people know about the Patriots. People are going to know about the Cowboys, even as bad as they are. People are gonna know about your better quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers. They would probably know how much Peyton Manning is struggling and whatnot. But nowadays, because of fantasy football, you get to know about that wide receiver on Jacksonville as a steal. You pay attention to all 32 teams, which that's what makes fantasy football very unique, is that it forces you to pay attention to all 32 teams. So now you have to know what Tennessee's doing. You have to know what Jacksonville's doing and whatnot. You have to keep up with those games because you might have the starting running back for Jacksonville. You may have the starting wide receiver or tight end for Kansas City. So, you have to just pay attention to all the teams. And like from the NFL to the NBA, they've done really good jobs of just marketing their product. When it comes to the NBA, the biggest thing that works for them, and it's kind of always worked for them, is the fact that like they're the athletes that you can see the best, I guess, for lack of better words. As in, no other sport gives you access like courtside. And even when you're watching the game, you're courtside. You're looking right at their faces, so you can identify an NBA player sometimes better than you can identify an NFL player or a Major League Baseball player just because you see them just from the broadcast and whatnot. So it's definitely when you talk about the NFL, it's at its height. I mean, there's so many things that contribute to that. It's at its height, and when it comes to the NBA, it's very popular as well because there's so many faces. There's so many superstar faces that you can you can advertise when it comes to the NBA.
Gotcha. Now, one quick question
Hmm.
before we go on to our next talks. Heisman. Right now they got
Hmm.
Derrick Henry number one. He's like for sure, maybe. So do you agree with that, or are you still thinking maybe a possibility for like our guy Leonard Fournette, or you think somebody else like Ezekiel Elliott or Mayfield may take it?
Well, LSU, I mean,
Isn't that
Leonard
good?
Fournette at LSU, still has had a great season, but the last 2 weeks he's been sub 100. So no, I agree 100% that it's Derrick Henry. 2 straight games of 200 yards. That's in SEC play in crucial games. I mean, that's pretty big. And honestly, it's funny. Leonard Fournette earlier this year had 3 straight games of 200 yards, and that was the first time that that's ever been done in SEC history. Well, this week, Alabama's going against Georgia Southern, and I don't know if they would necessarily go for it, but Derrick Henry would have a chance to do that. He would have a chance to go for 3 straight games of 200 yards if he
Yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah, and then he
So
has a
that's
game after that, and I don't think he has a really hard schedule after that. Then after Alabama, I think Alabama's tough, and then after that, it's really nothing really much.
Well, it's Georgia Southern, and I mean, yeah, it's Georgia Southern, and then Auburn, and then
Yeah,
the SEC championship game. So
yeah,
he even gets he's even going to get an extra game to showcase his skills.
exactly.
So I think he has the best chance. Ezekiel Elliott from Ohio State, he was someone that came on the he really burst on the scene last year in the playoffs when he went off against Alabama, and then when he went off against Oregon to lead Ohio State to a championship. So it's really no surprise that he's emerged. Baker Mayfield is going to stay in there because there really hasn't been a quarterback in the conversation this
Mhm.
entire year. So, I'm not surprised that he's there now. And if Oklahoma runs the table down the stretch, he would definitely get invited to New York. But I think Leonard Fournette definitely has a chance still. But
He would
after
have
the
to be
last 2 weeks,
amazing.
that impression is just very lasting for the national audience, and so he would need to have 2 superstar weeks against Ole Miss and Texas A&M in order to really
What?
get back in that conversation. But I think it'd be very tough to overtake Henry at this point.
Yeah, I think that he has a chance to kind of shine over Texas A&M because the Texas A&M just struggled this year. But if you look at Ole Miss still has a pretty decent defense. So I don't know if you would say he would really have a superstar weekend against them.
So
Um,
well, yeah, they have an amazing. Ole Miss has an amazing front four.
yeah,
It's as advertised. Their defense. While some people thought it was going to be the best defense in the league, I mean it's clear to see right now that Alabama is stacked. It's just
exactly. That's what I was gonna say. That's why I
it's
say
what it
it's
is.
an okay
Yeah,
defense compared
but
to like
the
if you look at
biggest
other places.
but the biggest thing is for Fournette's success is his offensive line has to play better. Over the last 2 weeks, they've struggled a lot against Alabama and Arkansas, and I mean a running back is really only as good as as his offensive line. He hasn't been able to get to the second level because Fournette, it's not he hasn't changed. It's just been the front seven has really beat up LSU the last couple weeks. So if they get it together, if the offensive line gets it together over the next 2 weeks, he'll definitely get back to his usual numbers of the 130, 150, 170 range.
Okay. Now, quickly, do you think people over respecting the Warriors right now?
Michigan?
No, I'm talking about not Wolverines,
Oh,
Warriors.
I'm sorry.
Steph Curry and the
Uh,
Warriors.
yeah, I'm sorry. We switched sports.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
um,
Apologize.
yeah. No. They're good. They're good.
So
LeBron said it best the other night. LeBron said, we lost in the finals. It was after I think they lost to Detroit, which Detroit's been playing amazing as well. But he was like, we lost in the finals, and the team we lost to looks hungrier than us.
hmm
And man, the Warriors look hungry. The Warriors listened to all summer long how much it was a fluke that they made it to the championship and won the championship, how they didn't have to face the Clippers, how they didn't have to face the Spurs in the playoffs. They got an easy path, which I think that's baloney. I don't know what an easy path means in the Western Conference. Like, they just dominated. They played who they played. Yeah, they can't help that. But you know, they're out to prove that was no fluke. So right now they're on pace for they're on pace for an 82-0 season, but of course we know that won't happen.
Yeah.
But they're on pace to really have a really good record when it's all said and done. And Steph Curry is putting up astronomical numbers. I mean, 50% field goal percentage, 40% three-point percentage, 90% three-point percentage, and leading the league in scoring. That's never happened. People have gone for 50, 40, 90, but not while leading the league in scoring. And it's actually, usually you think someone would lose their pace. I don't see that. Like, I don't see him losing his pace. I could see him possibly losing the scoring title because someone else emerges like Kevin Durant. But, that's ridiculous to even think about that he could possibly lead the league in scoring with those numbers. That would be one of, if not that would be the greatest shooting season in NBA history if he was able to keep that up.
Okay, so now that you spoke about Steph Curry, what do you feel about people are saying that he's maybe as good as LeBron James or maybe better, and also not even talking about like him being Michael Jordan. I think he's more like a modified like Isaiah Thomas and who else I'm thinking of, like Wilt Chamberlain kind of thing, you know. He not the Wilt Chamberlain. That's kind
I
of
was about to say I've never heard anybody compare Steph to Wilt Chamberlain. That's interesting.
no. It's Isaiah Thomas and somebody else. I'm thinking of. I apologize. I'm way off.
Walt Frazier maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, Walt Frazier. Let's say Walt Frazier. Oh, you mean
Okay.
you could say Pistol Pete or
Yeah.
something.
Well, I think Steph's the best. I think Steph's the best player in the league right now. I think he's playing the best. But I say that in this relative to this season and I guess last season too. I don't think he's necessarily better than LeBron because LeBron brings it two ways. That's kind of I guess my struggle in saying that is because just as good as LeBron is on offense, he's as good, if not better, on defense. So, LeBron can guard 5 positions. He's guarded the point guard before, and he's guarded centers before. Steph Curry can't do that. He's just not. He's not able. I'm sure he want to, but he's 6'2", 6'3", whatever it is, and 200 pounds. He's not guarding the center. And he's become a better defender of Steph Curry, but I think that's the only reason why I would say LeBron James is still the best player on the planet is because he is so good on both ends of the floor.
Gotcha. So what about Draymond Green? Do you think he's the second best player, or do you think it's still between is Klay Thompson?
Is Draymond Green the second best player on the Warriors?
Yeah, or is it Klay
Yes.
Thompson?
Yeah, Draymond Green is yes. I don't know if he's I guess you could call him the second best player. He's definitely the second most valuable player on the Warriors for sure, if not the second best player, just because of all he does. He is someone that can guard all 5 positions on the court, and he's just so valuable. The Warriors really found someone kind of like a Boris Diaw is for the Spurs, except at an all-star level. Draymond was just, he was so great at Michigan State. He was a 4-year guy under Tom Izzo, and those guys, the Michigan State guys, always come to the league polished. But I don't think people really expected this from Draymond. I thought he would be good. I thought he was better than the second-round pick, which is the way he was drafted. But I'd be lying if I said I thought he would be at this level, an all-star and a difference maker on a championship level, and so I would definitely say because of his passing ability, his ability to flow the offense, especially when, Steph gets double teams and he kicks it to him, he can kick out to pretty much anybody or score, and then, his just defensive prowess at 6'8", 6'9", maybe. Because of all that, I would say he's definitely the second most valuable player on the Warriors.
Gotcha. Now NFL, and we got to go after this.
Okay.
I'm calling Patriots. For Patriots and Carolina Panthers for the Super Bowl. How about you?
I think that's a good call. I'm still interested to see how the Packers haven't really looked good over the last 3 weeks, but I wouldn't count out A-Rod, and I wouldn't count out the Packers, but the Patriots are clearly the best team in the league, and that's after losing, 2 cornerbacks. Vince Wilfork is a defensive tackle. I mean, it's not like they picked up, these all-star pieces over the offseason. They just they lose guys and they just replenish. Their system is amazing.
I don't know, man, but you got Panthers and Patriots who are undefeated. Cincinnati Bengals is coming out of nowhere too, and Arizona is very much so a contender.
Yeah,
Broncos,
I like it. I like Arizona too. It's something about Carolina's really rolling, and their defense is really good. Of course, Cam Newton is going off for them. It's just something. It's something about the Panthers though that I'm not just willing just yet
to invest
to say that they're the clear number one and they're clearly gonna take the NFC. I think they still have a couple challenging games down the stretch. I'd be interested to see how they handle the second half of the season. I definitely would be surprised if they finish the season 16-0, whereas the way the Patriots schedule sets up, I would not be surprised if they went 16-0. And we'll see. The Panthers will certainly be contenders, but when it comes to January, I really like the Packers if they can figure it out, and I really like Arizona too. You mentioned Arizona, but their defense, they have a couple, LSU guys on their team, Patrick Peterson, Tyrann Mathieu. They're a really good squad. If Carson Palmer can stay healthy for them at quarterback, I like them as well to possibly make a deep run. But Carolina will be there. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Carolina will be in the running, and we'll have a chance to contend and play for a Super Bowl possibly.
Gotcha. I greatly appreciate it, Seth. And where can we catch you again?
WBRZ. If you would like to view stories or keep up with LSU, Saints, we talk national and other things as well. You can catch it at WBRZ.com. Twitter page for me would be Seth Lewis Inc. That's Seth Lewis INC. And I think the Instagram name is the same thing, Seth Lewis INC. So, that's where you can check me. And, thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, no, thank you very much, buddy. Seth Lewis, everyone.